Dapat po munang alamin or matukoy ang pangunahing problema ng bansa upang mapagtuunan ng pansin at mabigyan ng solusyon.
We should have specific goals, do research, and make a policy that is fair for everyone.
Walang problema sa pulisiya. Iayos lang ang pagpapatupad.
Bago patubas ang batas, pag-aralan muna gusto ng government.
Two things, clarity and execution. Both, you need the communication and monitoring. As simple as that.
Mandato ng Philippine Institute for Development Studies o PIDS na gumawa ng mga pag-aaral at pananaliksik ng mga pulisiya at programa ng pamahalaan at magbigay ng rekomendasyon sa mga mambabatas sa pagbabalangkas ng mga pulisiyang makakatulong sa ating bansa. Sinusulong ng aming ahensya ang evidence-based policy making upang bigyan din ng kahalagahan ng pulisiya na batay sa datos at policy research na sumusuri sa tunay na kalagayan ng ating mga komunidad. Napakahalaga ng policy research, lalo na sa mga panahong dumadaan sa krisis ang ating bansa.
Kapag pulisiya ay pinag-aralan, susulong ang bayan!
In need of references for your research? Do you want a digital library that you can access for free anytime and anywhere? You don't have to look far. SERPI is here for you. SERPI is an online database of socioeconomic materials produced by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, government agencies, research and academic institutions, and international organizations based in the Philippines. It is the country's first online repository of socioeconomic information, created for policymakers and development practitioners, researchers, educators, and students. To access SERPI, just visit the PIDS website and click the SERPI widget under the Databases tab, or type serp-p.pids.gov.ph. SERPI has a wide variety of materials such as journal articles, books, research papers, working papers, policy notes, audiovisual materials, and more. As of 2022, SERPI has more than 60 partner institutions contributing knowledge resources to the database. SERPI provides a comprehensive coverage of references encompassing 22 research themes: labor and education, gender and development, poverty, technology and innovation, trade and industry, and many more. On the enhanced website of SERPI, you can filter your research by keyword or author, publication type, research theme, or year published, all at the same time. SERPI has more than 7,000 publications and audiovisual materials that you can access and download for free. What are you waiting for? Visit SERPI now. Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines, innovating knowledge exchange and policy research.
So what is PIDS? For over 40 years, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS, has been the country's foremost socio-economic think tank. It conducts rigorous and objective policy research and analyses that help the government in crafting relevant policies, plans, and programs in support of the country's long-term vision and development goals. PIDS pursues its mandate through three basic programs: research, dissemination, and outreach. Through its research program, PIDS identifies and prioritizes studies, develops proposals, and conducts research on priority areas. The results of these studies are then disseminated through different platforms, publications, online resources, PIDS Corner, seminars, and the Development Policy Research Month, or DPRM, held every September. To shed light on key policy issues, the advice and expertise of the Institute's research fellows are also sought by policymakers, government agencies, private sector, and civil society. Since 1977, PIDS has completed numerous policy studies on a wide range of development topics. This brand of service has then translated to policies and programs that have improved the lives of every Filipino. Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Service through policy research.
Dapat po munang alamin or matukoy ang pangunahing problema ng bansa upang mapagtuunan ng pansin at mabigyan ng solusyon.
We should have specific goals, do research, and make a policy that is fair for everyone.
Walang problema sa pulisiya. Iayos lang ang pagpapatupad.
Bago patubas ang batas, pag-aralan muna gusto ng government.
Two things, clarity and execution. Both, you need the communication and monitoring. As simple as that.
Mandato ng Philippine Institute for Development Studies o PIDS na gumawa ng mga pag-aaral at pananaliksik ng mga polisiya at programa ng pamahalaan at magbigay ng rekomendasyon sa mga mambabatas sa pagbabalangkas ng mga polisiyang makakatulong sa ating bansa. Sinusulong ng aming ahensya ang evidence-based policy making upang bigyan diin ang kahalagahan ng polisiya na batay sa datos at policy research na sumusuri sa tunay na kalagayan ng ating mga komunidad. Napakahalaga ng policy research, lalo na sa mga panahong dumadaan sa krisis ang ating bansa.
Kapag pulisiya ay pinag-aralan, susulong ang bayan.
In need of references for your research? Do you want a digital library that you can access for free anytime and anywhere? You don't have to look far. SERPI is here for you. SERPI is an online database of socioeconomic materials produced by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Government agencies, research and academic institutions, and international organizations based in the Philippines. It is the country's first online repository of socioeconomic information, created for policymakers and development practitioners, researchers, educators, and students. To access SERPI, just visit the PIDS website and click the SERPI widget under the Databases tab, or type serp-p.pids.gov.ph. SERPI has a wide variety of materials such as journal articles, books, research papers, working papers, policy notes, audiovisual materials, and more. As of 2022, SERPI has more than 60 partner institutions contributing knowledge resources to the database. SERPI provides a comprehensive coverage of references encompassing 22 research themes: labor and education, gender and development, poverty, technology and innovation, trade and industry, and many more. On the enhanced website of SERPI, you can filter your research by keyword or author, publication type, research theme, or year published, all at the same time. SERPI has more than 7,000 publications and audiovisual materials that you can access and download for free. What are you waiting for? Visit SERPI now. Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines, innovating knowledge exchange and policy research.
So what is PIDS? For over 40 years, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies or PIDS has been the country's foremost socio-economic think tank. It conducts rigorous and objective policy research and analyses that help the government in crafting relevant policies, plans, and programs in support of the country's long-term vision and development goals. PIDS pursues its mandate through three basic programs: research, dissemination, and outreach. Through its research program, PIDS identifies and prioritizes studies, develops proposals, and conducts research on priority areas. The results of these studies are then disseminated through different platforms, publications, online resources, PIDS Corner, seminars, and the Development Policy Research Month or DPRM held every September. To shed light on key policy issues, the advice and expertise of the Institute's research fellows are also sought by policymakers, government agencies, private sector, and civil society. Since 1977, PIDS has completed numerous policy studies on a wide range of development topics. This brand of service has then translated to policies and programs that have improved the lives of every Filipino. Philippine Institute for Development Studies, service through policy research.
Welcome to the PIDS webinar series. Before we start our virtual event, we have some reminders. For attendees, your microphone is automatically muted upon entry. If you wish to join the discussion, click the Q&A icon, type your question, and click Send. For Facebook viewers, you may send your question using the comment section. Remember to keep your questions concise and direct to the point. We will screen all questions to ensure that they are relevant to the webinar topic and the presentation. The moderator will read the questions during the open forum and cover as many as possible depending on the available time. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed on the PIDS and SERPI Facebook pages. The recording will also be made publicly available on the PIDS YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your active participation.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our virtual event on investigating the determinants of development projects performance. I'm Sheila CR and I will be moderating the discussion. We are honored to have with us a seasoned evaluation specialist of the Asian Development Bank who will share with us the findings of an ADB study which looked into how well its projects have fared and the factors that affected their performance. And through this webinar, we hope to learn from ADB's insights and learnings, which we can use in improving the planning and implementation of our development interventions. So to formally open our virtual event, let us listen to the president of PIDS, Dr. Aniceto Arbeta Jr. for his opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for the PIDS public webinar titled Investigating the Determinants of Development Projects Performance. First, allow me to greet the following officials: Department of Agriculture, Philippine Rural Development Project, Deputy Project Director Shandy Hobilia, National Economic Development Authority, OIC Chief, Economic Development Specialist Marian Reyes, Asian Development Bank Consultant Maria Risa Serrano, Department of Agriculture Project Development Officer 5, Elizabeth Padre, Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute Executive Director Josefina Almeida, Department of Health Senior Health Program Officer Chris Paita. I would also like to greet those watching through our PIDS and SERPI Facebook pages, particularly those from various government agencies, local government units, the business sector, academia, civil society, and media. We are honored to have Dr. Yun Soon, Principal Evaluation Specialist of the Asian Development Bank's Independent Evaluation Department with us. She will discuss the first two chapters of ADB's 2023 Annual Evaluation Review titled, What Explains ADB's Project Performance 2016-2022? ADB actively combats extreme poverty, climate change effects, and challenges in health and education, among others, across various countries. It supports members and partners through loans, technical assistance, and grants, aiming for sustainable economic recovery, employment, social services, food security, and disaster resilience. In the Philippines, ADB has extended 621 public sector loans, grants, and technical assistance totaling $29.9 billion US dollars. Today's discussions aids ADB in improving project outcomes in the Philippines and across Asia. ADB's commitment to disseminating knowledge from its projects can shape policy and strategy. These insights are valuable to various government and private entities in development. Consequently, PIDS is eager to host this seminar for Dr. Soon. Evaluating the impact of ADB's intervention allows for better alignment with national priorities and a strategic collaboration with partners to enhance development and project effectiveness in the country. Performance analysis of these projects generates insights and policy recommendations, improving our capacity to tackle socioeconomic issues. This approach is crucial for achieving post-pandemic economic recovery and fostering inclusive growth. Insights gained from the ADB's development project experience are instrumental in developing and extending more informed policies, strategies, and interventions. To deepen our discussion, joining us to provide valuable insight this afternoon is PID Senior Research Fellow Adoracion M. Navarro. I thank Dr. Navarro for taking the time from her busy schedule to participate as a discussant in this webinar. Let us have a fruitful afternoon by gaining new insights into what shapes the success of development projects. May the lessons from ADB's experience guide us to become better development planners and implementers. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm now turning you back to our host.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arbeta. Allow me to say a few words about Dr. Yun Soon. So Dr. Yun Son is a principal evaluation specialist in the Independent Evaluation Department of the ADB. And before joining the bank in 2007, she was a property specialist at UNDP. She also worked for the World Bank and taught at Macquarie University and has published over 30 articles in international journals and 3 books on economic development. Her latest publications include Economic Inequality and Poverty in 2022, published by the Oxford University Press, and a special issue of the Journal of Income Distribution in 2022. She has a PhD in economics from the University of New South Wales and a master's in public policy from Harvard University. Friends, let us all welcome Dr. Yun Son.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sheila. Thanks to everyone for being here today. This presentation focuses on project and country factors influencing the success of aid-financed development projects, which has gained increasing attention in literature in recent years. The findings I'm going to discuss today draws on the Annual Evaluation Review 2023. It is an annual flagship publication that assesses the ADB's development effectiveness based on findings and evidence of the evaluation department's work, along with the analysis of past data. This annual evaluation review includes a thematic chapter each year. And for this year, 2023, we conducted deep dive assessment of factors explaining the success of the development projects. So next slide, please. So before I present the findings of the deep dive assessment, let me briefly go over past literature that has examined the determinants of development projects' effectiveness or success. So if we go to slide 3, in the past, say in the 60s, the literature had explored the impact of development projects on aggregate country outcomes like growth, poverty, inequality, and health indicators. So in those days, maybe the assumption was whatever aid given by development agencies are kind of poverty reducing, growth enhancing, or inequality reducing, and all those things. And they might, the assumption was maybe that sort of development impact happens automatically. But there has been paradigm shift over time. So recently, the literature has assessed the factors shaping the success of the development projects. So we are going into more of individual factors explaining the success of the development projects. We are increasingly asking the value for the money the development agencies are spending. Slide 4, please. So overall, literature has identified the factors at 2 levels. One is at project level, and the other is at country level. So when we look at country factors, those factors include the features like project size, length of implementation, how long the project is implemented, and also preparatory work like a feasibility study, and also supervision by development agencies and also by governments executing and implementing agencies, among others. And then when it comes to country factors, those factors encompass countries' policy or enabling environment, like capacity of government agencies, socioeconomic and political conditions in recipient countries, government rules and regulations, target beneficiaries, and so forth. And then we discussed the deep dive assessments of motivation, objective, scope, and methodology. Let me briefly touch upon each of these. So if you go to slide 6, so the question we are asking is, what's the rationale or motivation for undertaking the deep dive assessment on project and country factors shaping the success of development projects? And that's the question we are asking here in this report. So in ADB, there has been continued decline in the performance of public sector development projects. So in this report, we are not dealing with the private sector projects. We are only looking at the performance of sovereign projects. So the annual success rates have steadily declined from 2016 to 2020, and then it picked up in 2021, but it dropped again in 2022. So that has triggered our deep dive assessment, why these success rates have been declining over time from 2016 to 2022. Then slide 7, if we go there. Downward trend in ADB public sector project success rate was brought about mainly by poor infrastructure performance. So infrastructure projects performance, namely those in transport, energy, water and sanitation, agriculture, and ICT. So infrastructure project performance declined by 3.9% annually between 2016 and 2022. So we fitted trend line over time, and then this 3.9% drop per annum was shown statistical significance at 5%. So infrastructure project performance dropped by an annual rate of 3.9% over the 7-year review period. Especially energy project performance dropped by nearly 10% per year over the 7-year period. That's enormous decline. So after looking at our report, our energy sector team, the energy sector team in ADB is looking at what are the factors behind it. And then when it comes to non-infrastructure projects like health and education, they charted increasing success rate. So relative to infrastructure sector performance, non-infra sectors performed much better. But public sector management or budget support interventions performance declined significantly at an annual rate of 7.9% during the review period. So what we can take away from this slide is that infrastructure sector performance has declined significantly, but non-infra sector performance has done quite well. But within infra and non-infra sectors, the performance varies. I mean, especially the public sector management programs, they didn't perform that well. Actually, their performance declined significantly at an annual rate of, say, 8%, nearly 8% during the 7-year review period. And then if we go to next slide, slide 8, infrastructure project experience difficulties associated with applying advanced technology and with engaging numerous stakeholders at the subnational level. And for non-infra sectors like education and health projects benefited from strong government ownership of national programs and sustained improvements in institutional capacity, but the performance of public sector management or budget support programs was hampered by changes in program priorities. And these are some of the findings we got from documents review. And then going to slide 9. So our assessment examines project and country factors associated with the success of development projects as applied in ADB's sovereign projects, public sector projects. But just to note that among development partners, the success of development projects is determined by using evaluation criteria consistent with OECD DAC, Development Assistance Committee Network on Development Evaluations criteria like relevance, coherence, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability. Those 6 criteria. These are widely available in the website, so you can easily find that. But in ADB's case, out of these 6, we use 4: relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability. Each of these criteria is getting the same weight, and then we just take the weighted average of these 4 criteria to come up with whether a project is successful or not. That's the way we assess the performance. But in the case of the World Bank, they use all these 4 criteria: relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability. But when they arrive at the project success, they only use relevance, effectiveness, and efficiency. They leave out sustainability criteria because it is about the likelihood that project outcomes and outputs will be maintained over the economic life of investment project. So its likelihood is a bit challenging to rate. So maybe for your information, what is relevance, what is effectiveness, what is efficiency? Relevance is about the extent to which ADB projects are aligned with the ADB strategy and government strategies, So that's the basic idea of relevance criterion. And then on effectiveness, it is assessing whether projects' planned outcomes and outputs have been achieved at completion. That's basically effectiveness. And efficiency, it is about how ADB resources are used to achieve its outcomes. So when it comes to efficiency, there are 2 levels of efficiency. One is process efficiency, the other one is economic efficiency. So you might be familiar with, say, economic internal rate of return. So that is part of assessing efficiency criterion, because economic EIR, the meeting the threshold of 9% at the moment by ADB, is important criteria for project to be approved. So that's the economic efficiency. When it comes to process efficiency, it is associated with issues with design and implementation delays. And then when it comes to sustainability, as I told you before, it is about the likelihood that project outcomes and outputs will be maintained over the economic life of investment project. That is basically sustainability. And then let's go to next slide. So the assessment covers 486 ADB projects that were completed and validated between 2016 and 2022. So once the ADB completes a project, then ADB project team prepares self-assessment. But after that, our evaluation department evaluates it again. Basically validates whatever completion report prepared by ADB. So there are two levels of assessment of projects completed. So we are not dealing with ADB's completed projects, but also validated by evaluation department between 2016 and 2022. So the final rating is decided by our evaluation department, not by ADB. So completed pertains to projects for which completion reports have been published, and validated pertains to completed projects whose completion reports have been validated by ADB's evaluation department, where I'm working. Okay, slide 11, please. So the assessment identified the following project and country factors shaping the success of ADB public sector projects based on existing literature, consultations with ADB staff, and data availability. So we don't just randomly pick the variables, but these proxy variables are selected based on many layers of investigation. So for project factors, we included, say, project complexity, project risk severity, project supervision, project financing utilization, project procurement and design readiness. I understand the report has been circulated. So if you look at the report, I mean, the definition of each of these variables are described in the report. But for instance, project complexity. I mean, how do you define whether projects are complex or not? So we have used proxy indicators like the number of implementing and executing agencies involved in project implementation, and also whether project is categorized as multi-sector projects. So those are some proxy indicators we have used. So using project documents and also the database the ADB has. So we have used the multiple sources to come up with these categories. And then project risk severity. I mean, this is related to project complexity. So to classify project as risky or complex, I mean, we use a few criteria. I mean, ADB is using a few criteria. So one is loan amount. So they have a threshold of $200 million for projects and $50 million for programs. And then they also use ADB's experience in a particular sector, in a particular country. And then also they use government's executing agencies' capacity, how good they are. And then also they use safeguard categorization to classify whether projects are risky or complex and those things. And then project supervision and the number of ADB's staff involved. And then project financing utilization is to do with dispersed amounts relative to initially planned loan amount. And then the last one is to do with time lapsed in terms of month between the approval and then the actual and planned start date. So, and then when it comes to country factors, we included, the governance indicators, government effectiveness, like political stability. I mean, this data we got from WDI, from the World Bank, and then economic indicators like the growth in GDP per capita and debt to GDP ratio. Those are also used. And the unforeseen events, I mean, these are to do with natural disaster shocks. I mean, they are very prevalent, especially when it comes to small Pacific Island countries. So these are some of variables we have used to explain the ADB project performance by country and project factors. I mean, you can add more, but it was a gigantic exercise to prepare the database, because we had to extract a lot of information from project documents. So we have built a lot of columns to add on all these projects, 486 projects. So, and then let's go to slide 12. So for our deep dive assessment, we triangulated the results from various qualitative and quantitative methods. So we have used a mixed method, not only quantitative, but also qualitative method, to identify cross-cutting project and country-level issues affecting ADB's sovereign or public sector project performance. So we have conducted the ADB staff perception surveys that was circulated to all ADB staff. There also we did some decomposition analysis. I have training in development economics, especially focusing on inequality and poverty. So I have used some of the methods stemming from those literature and applied to this data to explain project performance. And then we have used some regression analysis, and then we have complemented those results with the literature review, project document review, and also we have interviewed more than 100 groups across the bank, not only staff in HQ headquarters, but also in registered missions. So it took us around a year to finalize this report, and so we presented this report to the board in April, several months ago. Yep. And then what we have found. So let's go to the findings. If you go to slide 14, there we can look at some findings, what we have found. So project factors like project complexity, risk, supervision, delegation, financing utilization, and procurement and design readiness, which I mentioned before, accounted for nearly 3/4 of the variation in sovereign performance in 2016 to 2022. So I think it is good news. Why? Because project factors are directly, but not completely, right, under project and sector teams' control. So ADB can control these project factors, So resources and attention devoted to project preparation and supervision are associated with the success of sovereign projects. Among the project factors examined, minimizing project startup delays and higher utilization of ADB financing are associated with a higher sovereign project performance. So, relating to that, I mean, longer elapsed times between project approval and signing are associated with the lower probability of project success. And another point is that an increase in the utilization rate of ADB financing is associated with a higher probability of a project success. So our initial, hypothesis was, the higher the utilization rate of ADB financing, the greater the project success likelihood. So our hypothesis was confirmed, I guess. So minimizing, taken from these findings, what we can say is that minimizing delays and increasing financing utilization can be promoted by ensuring projects design and procurement readiness through quality and timely technical design, feasibility studies, and due diligence in financial management, safeguards, climate risk, and gender equality, among others. So we are quite, we tend to be quite complacent about, preparation activities and due diligence activities, but the finding is suggesting that those are the key to success when it comes to project performance. So if ADB team ensures, the quality of the preparation activities and the quality of the due diligence, they can, they can increase the likelihood of project success. So if you go to slide 15, there are two issues here. One is delegation of projects, and the other is the size of implementation team. So on delegation of projects, delegation of projects to registered missions or ADB country offices can improve project performance. That sounds a bit obvious, isn't it? The registered mission staff or country office staff know the local conditions much better. So it may lead to project success. But there are conditions attached to it. So there are two ifs. So it is true if, number one, they are done early into the project cycle. That is number one. Number two is if registered mission staff effectively contribute to the capacity building of executing and implementing agencies, So these two ifs, we didn't know much about it. So we came up with a very specific recommendations on this delegation of projects. So more specifically, the delegation to registered missions can contribute to project success if, number one, there is early delegation. That is, projects were delegated to registered missions a year or two after loan approval or effectiveness. If it is too late, then projects will fail. But if it is a year or two, 1 year or 2 years after loan approval or effectiveness, there is a high likelihood of projects being successful if projects are delegated to registered missions. And then number two, registered missions staff were engaged to effectively provide capacity building or knowledge support to executing and implementing agencies. And then on implementation team size, this is a bit surprising. Larger implementation teams are associated with a lower probability of project success. I think there are a lot of duplication of work, and that is one thing. Or the other is staff turnover. So if project gets implemented too long, then the project members involved in project implementation get changed, and they move to another registered missions or another departments. And there is a high staff turnover. And then the other one is one additional ADB project team member in the chain of project management is associated with the low probability of project success by more than actually threefold. So that's our regression results. And then projects with the larger implementation teams are by and large complex and face higher risk, higher level of risk, meaning they require new or advanced technology as in transport, energy, and ICT investments, or they involve numerous implementing agencies, especially at the subnational level, as in agriculture projects, water and sanitation projects, and sometimes education projects. I mean, these sectoral projects involve many implementing agencies, so they become more complex. And then also at subnational level, I mean, capacity is always the issue. So they tend to involve, a lot of staff, and that lead to lower probability of project success. And then level 6, that slide is about our findings associated with the country factors. So country factors like governance, governance is government effectiveness, political stability, fiscal management, economic performance, and unforeseen events accounted for 1/4 of the variation in sovereign or public sector project performance in 2016 to 2022. While country factors may be more under the ambit of developing member countries, ADB can mitigate the risk arising from these factors through modalities like policy advice, policy dialogues, and the technical assistance, among others. So among the country factors, government effectiveness, economic growth, and fiscal management are associated with a higher project success because they comprise the enabling environment in which ADB projects are implemented. And then unforeseen events like security risk and climate change issues that are most prevalent in small island Pacific nations are associated with a lower project success. And then slide 17. And then here, what we have done is that, all these projects completed and validated, we have fitted distributions. So the poorest performing to the highest performing projects. And then we took out the 35 poorest performing projects, and then 35, the higher performing projects. And then we saw what are the common features underlying these projects. So that's the exercise we have done. So what have we found? So many of these have been already touched upon when I have discussed the project and country factors. So perhaps I can zoom in, one element on this participatory approach. So participatory approach matters for project success. So projects initiated and implemented with the participation of subnational entities and target beneficiaries were more successful than those that were not. So through participatory consultation, which is part of due diligence activity, actually. Yeah. So through participatory consultation, beneficiary communities and partner government agencies were involved in selecting and implementing project components like infrastructure schemes. Participatory involvement of local stakeholders entailed not only consultations, but also capacity development in the form of training, awareness raising, and provision of grants or credit. So these interventions help to strengthen beneficiaries and partner government agencies' capacities, especially at subnational level, in project management, financial management, and sector or subsector expertise. So with that, maybe I can end. I don't want to go into recommendation part because they are so tailored to ADB. So if questions arise, maybe I can talk about one or two later on. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yoon. That was a very insightful presentation. If you have questions for Dr. Yoon, just use our Q&A section. Just type your question, and she will be more than happy to answer it during the open forum. But at this point, let me call our discussant. We have Dr. Dora Navarro, a senior research fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Dr. Navarro's research interests are issues in the infrastructure sector and as well as regional development. She has been serving PIDS since 2012, interrupted by her stint as Undersecretary for Regional Development at the National Economic and Development Authority from November 2016 to June 2020. She holds a PhD in economics from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, an MPA major in economics in economic policy management from Columbia University, New York, and an MA in economics from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She is also a Philippine Navy reservist, currently holding a commander rank. Dr. Navarro, the floor is now yours.
Sheila, I hope that my audio is clear.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank the ADB's Independent Evaluation Department, particularly the study team led by Dr. Yun Son, for offering to present its study through this PIDS webinar. So I've read it, and I see its usefulness to the Philippines in terms of relevance of findings and the replicability of the research method. Thus, the title of my discussion, Relevance and Replicability of the ADBs. What factors explain development projects' performance? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's the discussion flow. First, I'll discuss how the study fits in. Next, I'll clarify some concepts in the study for the majority of our audience who are not from the ADB. Then I'll highlight the findings that are especially relevant to the Philippines. And finally, I'll explain the possible replicability of this study in the Philippines monitoring and evaluation practice. Okay, next slide, please. So how the study fits into the literature? Well, broadly, its contribution is on international development. Specifically, it contributes the literature on project management and evaluation. And I think that this is useful not only to officials and staff of the ADB and project implementers in developing member countries such as the Philippines, but it's also useful to academics and researchers, especially when you read the combination of the methodologies, the quantitative and the qualitative methods. And I also see that the review of literature makes its case convincingly on the determinants in general. So the general determinants of project success. And then the empirical findings, which are specifically for ADB-funded projects only. The findings in particular support the established literature. Okay, next slide. But let me give some clarifications for the non-ADB audience because understanding this requires esoteric knowledge of ADB practices. No? So let me provide clarification so we can see the important differences with the practice in Philippine government projects. So there's a reference to the factors explaining the success of development projects, but there seems to be inadequate clarification of what the study means by success, at least in the initial draft of the PowerPoint that was given. But Dr. Yunson earlier provided additional clarifications through her lecture. I see that project success is being measured first based on the ADB project team's self-assessment. No? They use rating successful, highly successful, weakly successful, and unsuccessful. Then the department from where Dr. Sun came, the independent evaluation department, validates these ratings, and in some cases, they downgrade the ratings. So they use the criteria, relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability as described earlier by Dr. Sun. Now let me provide the contrast with the Philippine monitoring and evaluation practice. So here, there's no particular indicator called success rate, but the indicators such as cost overrun and time overrun are measured and reported by the implementing agencies and by the interagency committee monitoring these developmental projects, the National Project Monitoring Committee with the subnational units. And the cost overrun and time overrun indicators imply different degrees of success. There's also a stringing together of the concepts project risk classification, and safeguard categorization. And I believe this needs to be demystified. In the ADB practice, there are three major themes of safeguards. One is first is on environment. So these are requirements on pollution prevention and abatement, biodiversity protection and natural resources, healthy working conditions, and similar requirements. And second, there's the second thing is involuntary resettlement, and the requirements are practices or procedures that will avoid involuntary resettlement or minimize it, or at least restore the livelihoods and improve the living standards of the displaced groups. No? And in many cases, they are the minorities in the country or the subnational region. And then the third major theme is on indigenous peoples, and the safeguards must demonstrate informed consent and the collective expression of it. Broad community support should be demonstrated. So that means that even if some individuals object, then as long as there's evidence that there's broad community support, then that would be okay. Now, let's contrast this with the Philippine evaluation practice. There are actually equivalent procedures and documentary requirements from government agencies proving that safeguards are in place. But the major difference with the ADB practice is that there is no classification of risk severity despite the safeguards. So it's like the requirement is to provide evidences, particularly to the NEDA Investment Coordinating Committee if it's a national government project, or the Regional Development Council if it's a subnational with influence area that's in more than one region. The requirement is
I think
to
there is a
provide
problem with the audio
evidences.
of Dr. Navarro, or is it just on my end?
Okay. How about Dr. Son? Can you give me a thumbs up if the audio is
Yes.
clear?
Dora?
Okay. Yeah. So it's clear to Dr.
Okay, so
Yunson.
her audio is okay? Oh,
Okay.
yes. So,
And
so it's
the
on my end.
participants are
Sorry.
giving us a thumbs up. So probably it's on your end, Sheila. Okay. So, and please feel free to send messages via chat for the participants if the audio is not clear. And we'll try to find out if it's true for everyone so that, we can do some technical adjustments. So as I was saying, so the major difference between the ADB practice and the Philippine practice is that there is no classification of risk severity despite the safeguard. So the requirement from implementing agencies is to provide evidences that there are safeguards, but no assessment of risk severity. Okay, next slide. Then let me explain some findings that I believe should be highlighted because they are especially relevant to the Philippines. Well, all the findings that are indicative of poor performance are relevant to the Philippines. But I would like to highlight this because these are what were summarized in your last slide, except that I added the first one on project delays with knock-on effects on financing utilization. And I think this is especially relevant because there are many examples of this. We've encountered many examples of this in Philippine projects. In projects wherein the mobilization was delayed and there had been knock-on effects on financing utilization. We have many examples of that. And in many cases, the reasons are procurement delays. And the procurement process is actually a weak link in the Philippines project implementation practice. There are persistent problems related to inadequate specifications of requirements. That's inadequate description of the terms of reference. Then also problems or issues related to transparency, non-compliance with procedures, and capacity of the implementing agencies, the capacity of the procuring entities. Okay. With respect to the finding on inadequate risk assessment during project appraisal stage, so that's also true for many poor performing projects in the Philippines and many projects that had poorly performed in the past. A prominent example is the MRT3 project. There, the demand risk was borne by the government. There are also examples in the water sector, projects in areas with the indigenous peoples or communities. I've seen this when I was undersecretary of NEDA. I visited some. The risk of not getting the free and prior informed consent in a timely manner, that is often encountered. And even the risk of the indigenous communities denying such consent and already during the project implementation stage. Okay. And then the finding on insufficient risk mitigation during the implementation stage. There are numerous examples of this in projects of the Department of Public Works and Highways, the Department of Transportation, and projects implemented by local government units. Projects that require right-of-way acquisition. the case more often than not is that the budget and timetable for right-of-way acquisition are not enough, and there are many cases wherein the implementers had to deal with court cases, and therefore that also had adverse effects on the timetable, and also it results in cost escalation, and again with adverse effects on the budget. And then on the finding that poorly performing projects had unjustified or untimely change in project scope, that's also true in the Philippine case, and even untimely change in financing scheme in some cases. And the recent examples under the past administration are the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit Project. Actually, it has still not yet taken off at this point, and the government had to pay commitment fees. So it's not under ADB, it's a French ODA. And then also the regional airports, that were initially part of the pipeline for the PPP program, and then the financing mode was switched to ODA. The finding on projects having ambitious scope that is not commensurate with the government capacity. So that's also true for the Philippines. And the examples are projects at the start of the electric power industry reforms, and some projects in the projects related to agricultural value chain development. In the case of the electric power industry reforms, after the industry was restructured, new players emerged. And then many government technical personnel got recruited by the private sector, and therefore upskilling new personnel took time. In agricultural value chain development, this is especially true in projects that are being implemented by various agencies, because these various agencies are involved in the different stages of the value chain. So there's mismatch, ambitiousness on the goal side, and uneven dedication and capacity of personnel of different agencies on the implementation side. Now, on the finding that poorly performing ADB projects faced security concerns or geographical issues, that's also true in the Philippines. And the examples are programs in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, because that's where peace and security concerns are most serious. And then also school building projects in the Cordillera Administrative Region. Because here, the considerations for the mountainous terrain, the Cordillera Administrative Region is in the north, and the terrain there is mountainous. So the considerations for the mountainous terrain and the weather almost always result in contra cost variations. Okay, next slide. Now, I can see that there is a potential for replicability of the ADB's approach, as described in the study, replicability in the Philippines monitoring and evaluation practice. And that is through the National Project Monitoring Committee, or NPMC, and its counterpart at the subnational level, particularly in the regions. And that is the Regional Project Monitoring Committees, or RPMCs. There's RPMC from the north to the south, from the Cordillera Administrative Region to the Mindanao regions, including Caraga region. So what you can see in this slide is an overview of the structure of this interagency monitoring committee for Philippine developmental projects. So the NPMC is at the national level, and it's composed of the NEDA as chair, and the Department of Budget and Management, Department of the Interior and Local Government, and the Office of the President, Presidential Management Staff as members. And then it has counterparts at the regional level, the RPMC, with members from the same agencies. But there is a private sector representative or non-government organization. And then there are local project monitoring committees, LPMCs, at the provinces, cities, and the municipality level. But there are problems related to the not only the practice, but sometimes in the constitution themselves of this. So during my time as undersecretary, I had to have that advocacy of reconstituting the local PMCs through the intervention of the Secretary of the Interior and Local Government. Okay, next slide. So on replicability, I think the replication can be performed this way. So, and what is more feasible is to start with regional data at first, and later, when the structure has improved and the availability of data has improved, that perhaps can be done by agency or by LGU. Now, the statistical analysis, the use of the probability of fixed effects model, I think can be used using RPMC data, and we can control for geographic region because there are existing project level data that can be consolidated, rearranged, and harmonized. And then the use of perception surveys, as the ADB had done, can also be replicated, and that can be conducted through the members of the RPMC. There are no similar existing surveys yet using perception. Then the composition analysis can also be done, and that can be by sector and by theme. So I think this practice can also generate rich data that will be useful to the Philippine government and the various agencies that are looking at looking at determinants also of project success. They can uncover trends on determinants of project performance, and they can, perhaps measure the problems at the national and subnational, meaning regional levels. And then lessons, approaches, and strategies toward problem solving can surface. So thank you, ADB, for sharing your study, and I hope our audience found this webinar useful.
I'm sure they did, Dr. Navarro. So thank you very much for covering the Philippine setting and the contextual factors that affect project success in the country, and also sharing with us your thoughts about the replicability of the ADB methodology in the Philippine monitoring and evaluation practice. Okay, so at this point, we can now entertain questions from our participants. So, okay. I don't see any question yet, so let me start the ball rolling. So, Dr. Yoon, you covered a lot of, I think 400 plus completed projects in the evaluation. So, particularly in the Philippines, in your sovereign projects in the Philippines, what did you see? I mean, what are the project factors and the country factors which you saw as really having the greatest effects in terms of project success?
Thank you. Before going into your question,
perhaps you want
provide
to
some quick reaction to
sorry,
Navarro's
please go ahead.
Insightful comments. I have a few comments to make. I mean, she touched upon Philippines setting and also safeguard assessment and all those things. So that reminded me of one of our recommendations given in the report. So as I said earlier, I mean, the recommendations of our assessment were geared toward ADB audiences. But they also offer some insights into improving the Philippine government's projects. And as Dr. Navarro was talking about her points, and then I was thinking about it. So, for instance, one of the recommendations that emerged from our analysis was the need for more effective appraisal of projects on a technical, economic, and fiduciary basis to improve ADB project performance. So robust due diligence measures, especially adequate preparation of safeguard assessment, whether environmental, social, it doesn't matter. So safeguard assessments were particularly crucial for the success of ADB projects, we found. So adequate safeguard risk assessments and mitigation measures are equally important for the Philippine government projects, many of which are focused on infrastructure development that include the resettlement of communities and acquisition of right-of-way. So these safeguard measures can spell the difference between successful and unsuccessful infrastructure interventions in the Philippine setting. Maybe I answered, Sheila, your question.
Yeah, thank you.
So, and then another couple of points reacting to Dr. Navarro's points. One is the application of the evaluation criteria. I mean, some of our listeners might have been overwhelmed with the many details and metrics used for the evaluation criteria. Yes, we understand. But when I joined the evaluation department, I was in the same place. But to just note that these evaluation criteria are not mechanically applied. You know? So as evaluators, we use this criteria based on the context to which they are applied. That is, what is the intervention being evaluated? What is a policy or enabling environment in the project location? Who are the stakeholders involved? I mean, what data are available and so forth. So we asked a lot of, these sort of questions, and then we use this evaluation criteria based on very context specific. I mean, that is the key. I mean, any research you do, I mean, you use judgment, right? So, I mean, in evaluation, I mean, same applies. And then finally, I welcome Dr. Navarro's point on potentially replicating the methodology in the Philippine setting. So the same grasp of the Philippine government's monitoring and evaluation system is needed when applying the methodology to the government's development projects. But key issue would be the extent to which a specific set of criteria is consistently used by regional and local project monitoring committees in evaluating government projects and measuring their success. And another important point is to contextualize the evaluation or assessment criteria based on a project's objective, prevailing institutional structure, stakeholder involvement, resources, availability of technical expertise, among others. So basically, there is no one size fits all approach. I mean, this may sound like a cliche, but it's really at the heart of evaluation. So evaluators need to understand the specific context in which projects are designed and implemented so they can make feasible and realistic recommendations. So that's the points I want to make. Thank you
very much, Dr. Yoon. So there's no question yet in our short in our Q&A box. So perhaps we can ask Dr. Yoon, I mean, among the projects that you support in the Philippines, which ones, in which sector is, I mean, in which sector are, or in which sector is project success the lowest and the highest? Because I think in your presentation, you talk in the broad terms, right? But perhaps we can zero in to the Philippines. So since we are talking about Philippine context here. Thank you.
I think ADB is highly involved in transport and energy when it comes to Philippines. But I don't have the success rates for Philippines. Maybe I can look into this area, but when you look at the higher performing and poorer performing projects, you know, in the distribution of all these 486 projects, I don't think we have included actually. I don't recall any Philippines related projects falling into that categories. I mean, we saw, you know, that we saw many projects in, you know, say, you know, the Central West Asian countries. So then, you know, to make it more representative, I mean, we looked at other sector projects and all that, but when it comes to Philippines projects, you know, transport and energy, they were actually in the middle of the distribution, not very higher performing or poorer performing projects. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's good to hear. So there's still room for improvement. Yes. Okay. We have one here. We have a question here from one of our Facebook viewers. Mr. Rocky Amos of the Asian Institute of Management. So let me read his question. What is the coverage of the Philippine evaluation in terms of the percentage of total government expenditure or revenue? And how do these reports flow back to the project design and planning process of ADB and the government? So, okay.
Actually, okay. I believe Dr. Navarro can provide insights on this, but maybe in ADB's case, I mean, we conduct dissemination activities as part of our evaluations, you know, including policy dialogues with the various government agencies, which includes also the Philippines. So these evaluations provide important avenue for knowledge sharing and policy dialogue between ADB and its partner countries. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me provide answers related to the Philippine government's practice. No? Because I used to be part of the group that was doing project evaluation when I was, you know, during my younger years, when I was a technical staff at the infrastructure staff of NEDA, and then when I came back as a official, as a undersecretary for regional development, I was the one overseeing the National Project Monitoring Committee and the regional project monitoring committees through the 15 NEDA regional offices. So there's no there's no you know, determination in terms of percentage of government expenditure or revenue, but there is a cutoff in terms of project cost is being applied by the NEDA Investment Coordination Committee. So the covered projects in the evaluation, based on my reckoning when I was there in 2017, it was adjusted to 1.2 billion pesos. So the coverage of ICC evaluation is 4 projects worth 2.5 billion pesos and up. And for the regional evaluation level, the ones that are being asked to be evaluated by regional development councils, no? It depends. If the project will have inter-regional coordination, implementation, coverage, and if it will require NEDA ICC approval, then it has to be covered by the evaluation. But if it's not making that 2.5 billion peso cutoff, as long as there's a need for inter-regional coordination, then it has to be evaluated there at that regional level. And if the project is among the priorities of the Regional Development Council, so although there's no inter-regional coverage, the influence area is limited to that specific region, but if it's part of the priority list of the Regional Development Council, the list that they champion to the central offices, the headquarters of agencies like the DPWH, the DepEd, the DILG, then it's covered in the implementation. So that's part of the coverage. No, and the results of the evaluation, they flow back to the design and planning through the lessons learned on first on the design themselves of the project. Now, why are these projects failing in the ICC evaluation process? They don't even reach the technical board level. And what are the reasons for that? So those have to be identified, and they should flow back to the planning stage, and there should be an identification of what went wrong with the project design, and that's specifically true in the planning stage of the proponent agencies themselves. The lessons learned in the implementation, they flow back to the officials through annual, and at the regional level there are quarterly assessments, no? So that is an opportunity for an assessment of the lessons learned in the implementation. And then at the national level, the various channels are through the National Project Monitoring Committee and the Investment Coordinating Committee itself, the one that approves the projects in the first place.
Thank you very much, Dr. Navarro. So, friends, I think we have already covered. I mean, there are no more questions in the chat box. And at this point, may I ask Dr. Yun Son for some brief final remarks, if she has any, then we will go to Dr. Adoracio Navarro. Dr. Son, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sheila. I don't have any other points to add at this stage, but I want to thank PIDS for organizing this seminar. Actually, I wanted to visit PIDS to know researchers, because when Dr. Celia Reyes was working there, I visited quite often, so I used to know a lot of researchers there. Then, time has passed quite a bit. I'm getting older, and so there must be a huge turnover as well. So I wanted to meet with researchers in PIDS. That was one of purpose of having seminar at PIDS, but I was not able to make it at this time. But maybe next year, if I get another opportunity, then surely I want to visit in person and want to meet with and interact with your researchers there. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Dr. Yoon. You're still very much welcome to visit the PIDS office and interact with our researchers. Just let us know. And of course, we welcome another dissemination forum that PIDS can host for you if you have any interesting study that you would like us to help you disseminate disseminate to our stakeholders. So thank you once again,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Yoon Son.
Thank
And
you.
Dr. Adora Navarro, please, if you have any final words for our audience.
Well, I have two key messages. First is on the just to continue the discussion, the sort of response to Dr. Yunson's point on contextualization. Actually, that is where the Philippine evaluation practice is good at, in the contextualization. At the subnational level, there are sessions called problem-solving sessions, and that is where contextualization deeply happens. The understanding what is the intervention, the policy context, the sentiments, and the behavior of the stakeholders, what data are available. So that happens at the project level and the problem-solving sessions for specific projects. So rest assured that contextualization is strong in the Philippine practice. Now, my second message is for the audience, especially those who are from government implementing agencies. I hope that you will really read this study for those who have not read it, and look at the potential of this to to influence your practice of project monitoring and evaluation, and look also at the potential of this to look at the potential replicability of this, in terms of making the government able to look at the whole set of projects in the NPMC and RPMC's portfolio at the same time. So not just looking at the specific projects and specific problems during problem-solving sessions, but having the ability to look at the whole set, the whole portfolio at the same time, and uncovering overall trends and identifying approaches and strategies to improve project implementation. So I think that's important. And thank you again, Dr. Yunsan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Navarro. So in case you haven't read yet the entire study of ADB on this, please, I think the link was is available in our chat box, and you can always visit the ADB website for the to download the full study. So at this point, please join me in thanking Dr. Yoon Son and Dr. Adora Navarro for sharing with us their time and expertise today. Let us give them a big virtual clap. Thank you very much. And we have some reminders before we finally close this virtual event. Okay, but before that, let me announce our raffle winners. So, well, every webinar, we always pick randomly names among our Zoom participants and those from Facebook. And we give them something as a token of our appreciation. So from Zoom, we have Ariel Oberes of the Provincial Government of Sarangani, and Ronessa Lau of the Commission on Population and Development. And from Facebook, Mr. Erwin L. Ascuna from the Department of Agrarian Reform, Policy and Research Service. Okay, so can we flash our reminders? So you may get copies of the presentations from our website. Just go to our to the events page of our website, and you may also download the full report of on ADB's 2023 annual evaluation review. We have the link, and we also provided the link. We will also provide the link on our events page. And please help us improve our webinars by answering our feedback survey. Your comments are important to us to improve our events. And also, please regularly visit our website and follow us on our social media pages for updates on our events, for updates on our knowledge products. And we also have a YouTube channel where you can view recordings of our past seminars. Okay, and in December, we have the following events. So on December 11, we will have our seminar on advancing sustainable futures in the APEC region through greater regional integration. This is organized by the Philippine APEC Study Center Network Secretariat, and it will be held on at the EDSA Shangri-La and via Facebook Live on December 11 from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And on December 14, we have our webinar on enhancing conflict resolution through the barangay justice system, the impact of Project Brave in BARM. This will be via Zoom and Facebook Live. From 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., this is a joint event between PIDS and the Innovations for Poverty Action. Okay, and finally, we would like to thank all the representatives from the various sectors, from the government, academe, international, of course ADB, and from civil society, and also from the media for joining us today, and also those from other sectors. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you again in our future events. Maraming salamat po. And again, thank you to our speakers.
Recording stopped.